हेलो एंड वेलकम टू बियॉन्ड द बाउंड्री। आप देख रहे हैं टीओआई स्पोर्ट्स पर हमारी ये प्रस्तुति, और हमेशा की तरह हम बात करेंगे कि व्हाट इज द मोस्ट रेलेवेंट टॉपिक इन द वर्ल्ड ऑफ क्रिकेट, स्पेशली व्हेन इट कंसर्न्स इंडियन cricket. Yesterday we had a special show on what was going to be the landscape of international cricket, international calendar, with so many leagues sprouting up. आज हम बात करेंगे एक आईसीसी इवेंट आने वाला है 2025 में. दैट्स गोइंग टू बी द मेन स्टोरी. It's been something that has been dominating the cricket news for the last 4 5 days. We had a prior discussion also, but since then there have been a couple of updates on that. So yes, we are going to be talking about, and साथ ही साथ we are going to try and provide a holistic view, a point of view towards the Champions Trophy. क्यों है ये टूर्नामेंट, क्या है ये टूर्नामेंट, क्या फ्यूचर है इस टूर्नामेंट का? Is this just a complication in the ICC events calendar, or is this becoming a bigger complication for all the parties concerned? So let's bring on our panelists. First of all, we have K. Srinivas Rao, TUI's Group Sports Editor. He's joining us from Mumbai, and then we have Manuja Virappa, who's returning to the show after a bit of a break. She joins us from Bengaluru. We'll also have Gaurav Gupta, who will be joining us from Mumbai in just a bit. But first, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the show. We'll be talking about the Champions Trophy. Let's just set the base, and I think it was known, Srini. It was known for a very very long time, and it's like कि कहते हैं ना, open secret. It was an open secret, despite the fact whoever says whatever. So many ex-cricketers from both sides of the border, so many media outlets, whatever anybody was saying, whatever plans were being made, आप अपने stadiums refurbish कर रहे हो, ये कर रहे हो, वो कर रहे हो, whatever said and done, the final word was always going to rest with the Indian government. Let me underline this: the final word was always going to rest with the Indian government, not even the BCCI. The BCCI has to take permission from the Indian government when it concerns playing in Pakistan. And it was on expected lines that Team India, men's Indian team, will not set foot in Pakistan. Let's get K. Srinivas Rao's thought on this.
This was never BCCI's decision in the first
Yeah.
place. BCCI is literally persona non grata, because this is again a bilateral issue between two governments that you're talking about. BCCI is too small a thing to come anywhere close to taking a decision on these lines. So this was never BCCI's decision, neither today nor was it in 2022 when the Asia Cup was being debated, nor was it in 2023 when Pakistan came here, when we hosted the World Cup. It was again between the two governments, right? So from that standpoint, this was not and this will not be, the BCCI's decision in any manner going forward. And yeah, you're right. India will not go to Pakistan. That I can confirm it to you. India will not go to Pakistan. I mean, that's 100% confirmation there. There are no two ways about it. People get into the right and wrong of the decision. That I'm not. I can have a separate debate. Right now, I'm telling you what is happening. So first, digest that. So, India is not going to go there. And I'll also give you a little bit more on this.
Please.
This has to be a hybrid tournament. Okay. Just the way Asia Cup happened. If it's a hybrid tournament, then it will be divided between Pakistan and the UAE. One semi-final of the tournament and the final of the tournament will then be hosted by the UAE. It doesn't matter whether India makes it to the final or it doesn't make it to the final. They will not wait until the last minute to take a call on where the final should be held, right? So if this turns out to be a hybrid tournament, then obviously this will kind of go that way. Now comes the other part of the story where Pakistan is saying that we may not participate. We will pull out. Okay, that's nothing new. They said we'll pull out even during the Asia Cup. Doesn't work like that. Eventually, if you ask me, they'll pull out. No, they're not going to pull out. Participation money is a lot of money. They will not pull out of the tournament. They will play the tournament, and a hybrid, so be it. And they will get the hosting fees. They'll get the full hosting fees. Because one country is not ready to go, it doesn't mean that Pakistan is going to lose out on that money. They will get the full hosting fees. So considering all things, yes, India will not go. If Pakistan agrees to this being a hybrid tournament, then this will be between Pakistan and the UAE. If Pakistan says that we are pulling out of the tournament, then India will say, let me host it. There's no problem with it. Because again, it will go to the next, ICC will have to call for a meeting. And then they say the original hosts are pulled out. Who do we give it to? And then, of course, people will raise their hands and India can host it or Sri Lanka can host it.
ओके, सो लेट्स यहाँ पे जो बातें कही हैं श्रीनिवास राव ने, उन पर भी ध्यान देते हैं. लेट्स ऑल्सो, इफ वी हैव एन इन्फॉर्मेटिक, इफ वी हैव इन्फॉर्मेशन रिलेटेड दैट ऑन द ग्राफिक, लेट्स ऑल्सो पोस्ट दैट. फर्स्ट ऑफ ऑल, जो जो पहला पॉइंट है जो आज हमने क्लियर है, जो दैट्स वेरी वेरी क्लियर, and it is the BCCI stand, it's the Indian government stand. The Indian team is not going to Pakistan. That's the end point, end of topic. उसके बाद आप जो टूर्नामेंट होस्ट करने वाले हैं, दैट्स गोइंग टू बी ईदर अ हाइब्रिड टूर्नामेंट, और लेट्स कम टू द और इन जस्ट अ बिट. द हाइब्रिड टूर्नामेंट, अब मैं, आई वाज लुकिंग एट the news from Pakistan, because of course, you have to, you have to accumulate, or you have to assimilate what the other side is also saying. And you look at the, जैसे हमारा show है YouTube पे, there are other shows on YouTube as well, etc etc. And the buzz is कि ठीक है, इंडिया के मैचेस बाहर होंगे इन यूएई के, and then the knockouts will happen, this and that. No, this is also a kind of a disinformation or misinformation in the Pakistani circles, that you can have the knockouts in Pakistan. At best, as Shrini also underlined, at best you'll have one semi-final in Pakistan, because the broadcaster is not going to spend twice the money to arrange the semi-final and the final in UAE, also simultaneously arrange the semi-final and final in Pakistan, in case India doesn't reach the final. That is not going to happen. Like it happened in the Asia Cup, you're going to have a hybrid model where one semi-final will perhaps stay in Pakistan, where Pakistan might play its semi-final if it reaches the semi-final. Otherwise, the other semi-final and final is going to be in the UAE or the alternate country. Now, the big news, we had Dawn, with the big newspaper in Pakistan, one of the prime newspapers in Pakistan, Dawn, that said that Pakistan PCB, क्योंकि हमें यहाँ पे ये देखना जरूरी है कि PCB chairman, PCB representative, whoever it is, they're part of the part of the Pakistan government, and they are saying ki, boss, let's just refuse to play the tournament, let's just withdraw from the tournament, in case we just don't want the hybrid model at all. That is where it might it might just come down to that, or it might come down to that. But look, let's be very honest, it was always going to be this scenario. Srini, could this scenario have been avoided? That's the big question at this point of time.
What is there to avoid? I don't see any reason. What is there to avoid? We don't want, the Indian government doesn't want to travel there. So I don't see any reason. What is there to avoid? Convince them, change their mind. They are not going to change their minds. So where is the question of avoiding it? The 2022 was the same scene. I remember exactly 2 years ago, I was sitting with a very, very good host. I was sitting on a Pakistan YouTube channel. They do a very fine job of bringing overall, views, and I happen to be there. And much as they kind of, their judgment, I trust their judgment in terms of understanding news. They were not ready to believe it in 2022 when I told them, no, this is not happening. The Asia Cup is going to be hybrid. They were not ready to believe this. And I kept telling them, I said, listen, this is going to be hybrid, whether you like it or not. It took them a while digesting. Now, whether it's dawn or sunset doesn't matter. The point is, India will not go, and you have to come to that understanding. It's either going to be a hybrid tournament, or they're not going to be part of it. But let me tell you one thing. That said, the ball is not in India's court now. The ball is in the court of Pakistan. It's in Pakistan's court. They have to take a call on everything. So the problem is, people debate kya kar rahe hai? People are debating whether India is going to go to Pakistan. That is already a decided thing. That's not happening. So the ball is in their court, isn't? You have to decide the next step now, whether you agree to the idea of a hybrid tournament, or you want to still, kind of continue with that stand that you want to pull out of the tournament. That ball is in your court, and that's where things stand as of now. So, let's move further from here. Actually,
okay, let's get thoughts from Manuja and Gaurav as well. First of all, Gaurav is joining us as well. Both of them returning to the show after a while. Your thoughts on this topic? It was always going to be the case. India was never going to Pakistan. As Shrini says, now the ball is in their court, whether they accept the hybrid model, or they say, okay, boss, since you're not allowing us to host it in our country, we are adamant कि हमें तो यहीं host करना है, जो मर्जी कर लो. India is not going to come. We are not going to go and play it anywhere else. These are the only two scenarios remaining. Manuja, let's go with you.
It's easily said and done with so much of economics involved. But, I've always had this question of, why did we wait this long? From 2008, India has not traveled. Indian cricket team has not traveled to Pakistan. I don't see that. I don't know who saw it change in the future. Why are we bringing it to a position where a few months before a tournament we are saying, "Oh, is India going to come? Is India not going to come?"
Hmm.
I think this time should have been taken much earlier. This whole scenario of debating over it now wouldn't have arisen.
Hmm.
You just kept dangling this Champions Trophy carrot to Pakistan all along, only to tell them, boss, let's go into a hybrid model. And especially, this is a lesson that should have been learned after the Asia Cup. I mean, what did anybody think would change between Asia Cup and now in a year's time?
Okay, so
I think Manuja, what
yeah,
changed is, because they came here in 2023.
for the
So
ODI
I
World
think
Cup,
Ah,
right?
that's where, I think that's where people, kind of thought that, okay, the reciprocation will happen, right? As the show goes
so
further, we'll
did,
talk
did
about
it
it.
also did it also have to do with the fact that our tennis team played Davis Cup there?
No. See, Brazil's Kho team can come to India. Brazil's volleyball team can come to India, but Brazil's football team to coming to India is a totally big
Yes,
deal, right?
yeah. So
USA's pickleball team can come to India, but USA's all-star basketball team coming to India is a very different distinct. So from same thing from India's standpoint, our Kho team can
we'll
go
come to
there,
that.
our
Yeah,
other team can go there, but Indian cricket men's cricket team is a different ball game altogether.
yeah. Let's go. Let's get Gaurav's thought on this because Manuja जैसे कह रही हैं कि this was anticipated, but Gaurav, we've had so many news breaks. आप इतने सारे एक्स क्रिकेटर से बात करें, especially across the border, they are like, okay, India should come, India should come, India should come. We had an ex cricketer tweeting a couple of days back कि India should come, India should come. उससे 2 दिन पहले he's like Pakistan is a safe country. 2 दिन पहले there's been a bomb blast over there. So look, the fact of the matter is, nothing from the Indian side has changed. Nothing, no kind of messaging has gone from the Indian side to say, ki, boss, this is going to change. If you're saying ki, ACC के representatives went to Pakistan, etc., etc., that was a totally different ball game altogether. आपको Asia Cup sort out करना था, आपको ODI World Cup sort out करना था. जहां तक reciprocation की बात है, again, like Srini says, the security issue for the Indian men's cricket team is a completely different ball game altogether. So this assumption from Pakistan's point of view कि ये तो शायद हो सकता है, ये तो शायद हो सकता है, that's a false assumption altogether.
Yeah, Chetan, firstly, thanks for having me on the show. And I was on a break because of Ranji Trophy, ongoing matches, and the test match and everything. But the fact of the matter is that, I agree. I mean, Shini actually gave me an answer that I've been thinking since the afternoon when that press release came about the Indian blind team going to, asking for permission from the government to go to Pakistan. But then, as he says, our other teams going there and our all-star cricket team, going there makes a completely huge difference, एंड बट मेरा मुझे लगता है ये सिक्योरिटी का पॉइंट नहीं है ये एक प्रिंसिपल्स का स्टैंड है wherein you have had unabated terrorism in J&K and in support for something that our government is very strongly stood up for the last
Yeah.
few years and I think ये वो स्टैंड है कि भाई आप ये चीजें बंद क्यों नहीं हो रही है even as we are talking I think yesterday before a सूबेदार नायक सूबेदार got killed शहीद हो गए वो और I think it's connected to that there has been no sort of let up in these incidents अगर ये थोड़ा एक thaw आए थोड़ा एक ऐसा पीरियड आए जहां कुछ ना हो तो शायद फिर भी कुछ सोचा जा सके but it has just continued at such a pace that if you go there'll be so many protests and everything and it will be everything that this government has not supported so far so I think it's more of a political stand that the government has taken and it has been consistent with it but at the same time वो यहाँ पर आए वर्ल्ड कप खेलने तो उनका भी एक नाराजगी बनती है कि यार हम we went there and all that but they don't look at it in a way that it is out and out a decision of the government and a political decision it has nothing to do with sports and
Okay.
sports and politics do mix to say that कि नहीं mix होते हैं वो नहीं बोल सकते आपके mix नहीं होता
I'll be very honest. I'm very glad that somebody said this because I've always said this that sports and politics do mix, and they have always mixed. It's not a clear-cut line. You can't keep them separate. Now, let's be very honest, and we've said that this on the previous show as well. This is a geopolitical decision. This is not a cricketing decision. But यहाँ पे, I also want to bring in the point, and Srini made that point, and I want him to continue making that point as well. कि boss, आप geopolitical decision भी ले रहे हो, But at the same time, a hockey Indian team going there, a volleyball Indian team going there, any kind of Indian sports team going to Pakistan is a completely different ball game than the Indian men's cricket team going there. And that, hurts them in different ways. Whether it's hosting the tournament, whether it's sponsorship, whether it's finances, this and that. Let's not forget, Pakistan is foregoing PSL ka window to host this tournament. And when the PSL does happen, whether Champions Trophy Pakistan mein hoga, nahi hoga, hybrid hoga, kya hoga, whatever, when the PSL does happen, it is going to clash with the IPL, and you can just see what is, IPL. Nobody can stop the IPL. There's nobody in world cricket that can stop the IPL or even compete with the IPL. So you can just see in what sense that happens. So the geopolitical is a reason. Let's be very honest about this. The geopolitical is a reason, and then it has impacts in other ways. Srini.
Yeah, I mean, see, now that like kind of, I mean, we've discussed like kind of the fact that where things stand as of now, and the fact that there's only a choice between having a hybrid tournament or the host say we are pulling out, and then the ICC taking a call on where exactly should it change. But none of that will happen. If you ask me today what will happen, it will be a hybrid tournament. It'll happen in UAE, and it will be a hybrid tournament. And all said, see, Pakistan Cricket Board is they have to take a stand. Please understand. I went to their thrice, okay, to Pakistan. I can tell you one thing, and firsthand, there is zero doubt in terms of who those people are and what their levels of hospitality can be. They are extremely I mean, the people there who host us, or who have hosted us in the past are extremely hospitable people. They are like different level. I mean, I can go on and on and on about that. But the point is, we are discussing a news development, and we are talking about whether what is going to happen. And so, sticking to that, I'm giving you a news development that India going to Pakistan is not going to happen. Now, having identified with that line of thought, what's more important is to understand why Pakistan may still go ahead with the idea of a hybrid. Because hosting fees are very important to the Pakistan Cricket Board. They are a big source of revenue. You're talking about PSL clashing with IPL. If PSL had to pass, if it had to come to pass that a PSL has to clash with IPL, there will be no PSL. Not because the Pakistan Cricket Board is going to say anything, or the player availability will be a problem, and the broadcaster will say stop it, and we'll host it later. That is the only solution. There is no other solution. So these are apples and oranges. There is no comparison here. We are people like to discuss, and it's something that they would like to know. So we are hosting a show here and probably sharing what a news development is all about. But otherwise, this is totally a case of apples and oranges. Now, coming back to the idea of Champions Trophy, Pakistan will still say that they want to host it or participate in it, which they did in 2023. In 2023, they had all the right to say that no, we don't want to participate, right? But the participating fee in a tournament as big as the World Cup is extremely important from a PCB's perspective, and so is the idea of hosting. Whether it's an Asia Cup or whether it's a Champions Trophy, the ICC hosting fees, are a big source of revenue from a PCB standpoint. So, keeping all of that in mind, I still feel that the hybrid tournament is going to go further. Which again, I mean, as this conversation goes further, I'm sure we'll be discussing, is Champions Trophy so important after all, or where did it come back into the picture in the first place?
We'll discuss that. That's going to be the end point. लेकिन यहाँ पर हम एक बात जरूर करते हैं. Nimish Juneja saying Pakistan boycotting the match against India. What if they do that? I hardly doubt it. That's going to happen. Especially if they agree to a hybrid model. The only way I see them boycotting this match is Pakistan's pull out altogether from the tournament. They say they don't accept the hybrid model, and they say if you're not hosting it, we're not participating, which would just completely exasperate the situation. But let's return to the point that Shrini was making in terms of the money that this tournament will garner, which is going to be very important for Pakistan. It's very important for all nations. All nations take that from the pie, the broadcast pie, the sponsorship pie. But यहाँ पर एक बात ये भी तो है ना कि that sponsorship money, that broadcast money, that is brought onto the table if India and Pakistan, that big game is there in an ICC event. We've seen that in every ICC event, there is an India-Pakistan game guaranteed. So that also brings puts money on the table. That is something that cannot be denied either, right, Srini?
All of that is from India. I mean, I can tell you the ACC, Asian Cricket Council, has brought out a tender. So I can tell you the last 8 years, the price model of the ACC was around $100 million, and it's gone up to 170 million. That's the total price. And who do you think is going to bid for it? There's only one bidder, Geo. There's no other bidder. It will go at base price. Even if it goes at base price, Asia Cricket Council would have earned 70% with a 70. They will end up with a 70% hike, on the current broadcast rights that they sit on. And where is this money going to be distributed? This money is going to be distributed majorly among countries in the subcontinent, which is Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, Pakistan. So where exactly is this money going? By the way, I can tell you that TCM, 20th Century Fox, made a bid for sponsorship. Not Fox, sorry, 20th Century Media, TCM made a bid for sponsorships, and they bid around 44 million. I mean, they put in good amounts of money to take away the central sponsorship for ACC. Where is all that money coming from? All the money is coming from India only, right? So that is business. India versus Pakistan on television is great show, and we are okay with it. We are not saying that we don't want to play Pakistan. The Indian government is okay to the idea of playing with Pakistan. It's the only thing that they're saying is we will not travel to Pakistan. And I'll give you a reason also. Actually, I was debating this with someone, and I asked this person, like, a person somewhere associated with how, kind of how the government thinks and what the kind of decisions they arrive at. I said, listen, what's the problem? At the end of the day, it can all be monitored, it can all be done. He said, listen, give me an idea. And these guys think very weird. I mean, where their minds go, we are like, kya soch raha hai, bhai? I didn't even think about this angle. So this guy is telling me, listen, somebody who doesn't want India and Pakistan to enjoy a decent relationship may probably kind of try and do some antic. We don't want even to take the slightest of risk. We are not talking about a Coco team or this. We are talking about an Indian cricket team, which is again the most popular cricket team anywhere in the world. So from that standpoint, he says we don't want to take any risk whatsoever. For us, game comes later, safety is paramount. So no matter what, we are not going to take any kind of risk. And for that simple reason, we are not averse to kind of playing them. Any other venue is fine with us, which I kind of, I was trying to wrap my head around what was being said. Yeah, just sharing.
Okay, and the other thing that we also discussed, this was pre-show. I had a discussion with Srinivas Rao, and I think we always always try to bring you news and etc. And I think we can tell our audience, Trin, do you want to say that there is going to be a decision imminently on the future of the
22nd.
championship, and
22nd,
22nd,
the draft schedule will be out.
yeah,
November
November 11 pehle ye news आई थी. Can we have that news on the screen? November 11 was supposed to be the event in Lahore where they were going to announce the schedule, and that event was cancelled or pushed back or postponed, etc., etc. But now I can tell you, and this news comes from K. Srinivas Rao, Group Sports Editor, Times of India, that November 22 has been the tentative date where the ICC will announce the Champions Trophy scheduling, and at the same time, a decision will be imminent on this tournament, whether it's a hybrid model, etc., etc. What happens? Let's talk about the Champions Trophy in particular. Let's just talk about it in particular. This tournament started as the knockout tournament. In fact, it's the only tournament that South Africa has actually won. 1998, May, wasn't it? It was started by late Jagmohan Dalmia, who started this, right, Srini, so that you could have extra money. It has always been about that extra money since this tournament came into force in 1998. Then, of course, it became the knockout in Kenya, a big tournament. India lost in the final. And since then, it's been renamed the Champions Trophy. The last time happened in 2017. Yeah, Shani, you raised your finger. You want to say something?
Yeah, see, Champions Trophy, you need to look at that model in two halves. One is what was Champions Trophy as a property 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago, and what was the prospect of hosting a Champions Trophy, or what ICC began to think about a tournament like Champions Trophy over the last 10 years, which is why it made a comeback. Okay, so I'll just quickly explain this to you. The idea of hosting a Champions Trophy at the turn of the century, when you talk about Jagmohan Dalmia and 1998, etc., the idea was to have a tier 2 white ball tournament. Because again, every 4 years the ICC only hosted the 50-over World Cup. Barring the 50-over World Cup, there was no property that the ICC could see. What the ICC was facing a problem. They had tier one sponsors, tier two sponsors. They had tier one broadcasters, tier two broadcasters, right? So there was a market that they had to cater to at a secondary and a subsidiary level also. So in order to cater to that sponsorship market, what BCCI, the man Jagmohan Dalmia was leading ICC at that point, what he thought was, okay, I think there is space to have a tier two tournament. We can divide it every 2 years so that the subsidiary sponsors, the secondary sponsors will get equal amount of space to kind of be involved with the game. Now, this was pre-turn of this, around the turn of the century, this was the mindset. But you have to understand one thing. If nothing changed cricket, the traditionally how we see cricket, nothing changed the traditional idea of cricket the way the IPL did. Sorry, I'll just have a sip of water. My throat is going.
Yeah, go ahead.
Nothing changed the idea of cricket the way we've traditionally known it, the way IPL did. What was IPL? IPL came in like a juggernaut. It was an annual tournament. Okay, an annual tournament that attracted the world's top sponsors in cricket, the top broadcasters in cricket at top dollar. At
Hmm.
least 2008, when Sony bought IPL on a platter, when no other broadcaster was ready to touch, and sponsors came because they trusted people in the BCCI more than they trusted a new tournament coming in. What happened was, it until 2012, 13, 14, 15, people didn't really realize what they were missing out on when they saw the IPL grow into the kind of behemoth that it began to grow,
Yeah.
right? When that began to happen, what did the ICC begin to think? And this is at a stage where Mr. N. Srinivasan was quitting the ICC. Other members were taking charge. Mr. Shashank Manohar was heading the ICC, but I don't think he had neither did he understand finance, nor does he still understand finance. And neither did he understand the fact that, in trying to defy BCCI for whatever reasons that he wanted to, he was allowing a cluster that was there for several years to fall. So, to cut a long story short, here's what I'll tell you. People began to take note in the ICC that they did not have an annual window that would allow them to attract the same quality of sponsors that the IPL was beginning to attract, because they annually hosted a tournament in a fixed
Which
window.
is which brings this tournament into focus, because अगर आप ICC का
Hear
calendar
me out
देखो,
on this. Hear
this
me out on
tournament
this.
has been brought in to plug the
But
gaps
I
in
would
between
also realize
the
that
ODI.
by that time, the
Hmm.
T20 World Cup had made itself into a very formidable property. So much so that it had pushed the 50-over World Cup behind, right? So the
Yeah.
T20 World Cup had become the ICC's marquee property, and in that, the ICC took a call that perhaps a 50-over model by itself was not so relevant anymore. In
Which is the big
that,
topic.
they
Yeah.
realized that probably having one marquee World Cup is going to satiate their sponsors more than having two divided tournaments where they really didn't know where they were going with it. So
Which
they took
which
a
is actually, yeah, which is actually the relevant point here. Let's talk about that. The future of the
I
Champions
have to
Trophy.
still complete it. If we want to understand the whole thing, this
Yeah.
couldn't have been possible if not for the one broadcaster who was ICC's partner, BCCI's partner, ACC's partner, everybody's partner.
Star Sports. Yes.
So in those 10 years, we are talking about Disney.
Yeah. Disney Star.
In those 10 years, whatever Disney said was really important, because they were the stakeholders everywhere, whether it is IPL, BCCI, bilateral rights, ICC rights, ACC rights, they were sitting on everything. Now, Mr. Uday Shankar, who has had a lot of different viewpoints on how cricket should be run globally, Mr. Uday Shankar, obviously, who built Disney in India, he thought that a tournament like Champions Trophy, and by 2017, mind you, Star was already thinking of putting all its money in IPL. In 2018, they bid $2.5 billion, and they were going to put another $1 billion in Indian cricket in 2018. So all of this, they were putting a $4 billion corpus in place. While they were busy and $4 billion corpus in place, they were free to take a call which property they wanted to bid for and which property they didn't want to bid for. And that is where they realized that a tournament like the Champions Trophy needs to go into a complete rehaul. We will come back to this later. And therefore, after 2017, it was scrapped.
Yeah, it was scrapped after 2017. लेकिन यहाँ पर भी ये बताना जरूरी है कि if you look at the ICC FTP, You look at it. You have the ODI World Cup in 27 and 31. 24 May you had the T20 World Cup, 26, 28, 2020, 2030, and then you have 25 and 29. आपको ICC को एक filler event चाहिए था for those 2 years. So let's bring in Gaurav and Manuja here. Do you guys think, I mean, is this been reduced? अगर आप देखो जो शुरुआत है, जो विल्स इंटरनेशनल कप की शुरुआत हुई बांग्लादेश में, जगमोहन दालमिया, bringing in the tournament to get that extra money. Has this tournament been always about the money, and now it's been brought back? It's still about the money, but is it relevant enough that you have a mini tournament, an 8-team tournament in an ODI format potentially? Is it even relevant enough to have that? जैसे अभी last year the ODI World Cup was going on, and all conversation was कि England जो इतना खराब perform कर रही है, can they finish in the top 8 and qualify for the Champions Trophy? So Gaurav, your thoughts, and then we'll come to Manuja. You're muted, just one second.
Yeah. मैं कह रहा हूँ कि मुझे तो ये सब कंट्रोवर्सी देख के लगता है कि एक टाइम शायद पाकिस्तान भी खतरे में थी कि क्वालिफाई करेगी या नहीं करेगी, शायद नहीं करते तो ये इतना बड़ा लफड़ा ही नहीं होता, बट देन अगेन दे आर द होस्ट, सो आई थिंक दे वुड हैव ऑटोमेटिकली,
they are host.
हाँ तो आई मीन ये सब अगर नहीं इश्यूज होते तो इट वुड हैव बीन अ ग्रेट, आई मीन अदरवाइज आई वुड हैव लुक फॉर, वी वुड हैव ऑल लुक फॉरवर्ड टू द टूर्नामेंट ना. पाकिस्तान जस्ट बीटन ऑस्ट्रेलिया, आई मीन इंडिया इज sort of going through a slump, but then in ODIs they've been generally very good. Final में खेले World Cup last year, so it would have been as a cricket fan, I would want a tournament like the Champions Trophy. Why not? Because I think it offers the best of the teams. Sort of a 3-4 games में खत्म हो जाता है. It's a very compact tournament, unlike a World Cup which sometimes stretches a bit too much. This is a very compact tournament, and if played on good pitches and in a good environment, it can be a bit of an entertainer. But yeah, at the same time, I mean, as Srinivas very rightly pointed out, उस टाइम पे IPL नहीं था जब ये इन्वेंट हुआ. Its idea was to fill the ICC's coffers, have a sort of a tier 2 tournament which can sort of cater to the whole setup and all that. But having said that, I think it's an international cricket tournament at the end of the day, and it will have its relevance, and fans will look forward to it. And India clinching it in 13 was an extremely emotional moment for all fans, especially coming on the back of the spot fixing scandal, And then in 17 we reached the final. We lost to Pakistan. I think it was one of the most talked about games, and India sort of suffered a meltdown after playing well in the tournament. Pakistan were pretty good that day. So cricket-wise, I don't think you can question the property. But as Shri said rightly, a lot of other commercial issues which also have to be taken into account. But in terms of cricket, it has offered exciting cricket over the years, and I think that is something that will stay with it. It has a legacy.
Okay, Manuja, do you agree with that? Rohit ka yahan pe question aaya hai, what's the point of having a tournament of only 8 teams? And we have to remember, ODI World Cups are now 10-team tournaments. So, I mean, what's going to happen in 27, 31 is totally different. But abhi tak, last 2 tournaments have been 10-team tournaments. Here you have a mini tournament making a comeback in the ICC calendar with just 8 teams. Is there a point? Or do we need to say, okay, let's shift gears, let's change the format, let's get into the T20 format? But then again, you're thinking, why have a tournament with just 8 teams even in the T20 format? What is the immediate future? उस पे तो हम बात ही कर रहे हैं in terms of the hybrid model, etc. But यहाँ पर ये सवाल जरूर आता है कि what is the long-term future of this, or are we just cramming the international cricket calendar now?
Chetan, I'll kind of compare Champions Trophy to Commonwealth Games, where it was a great property to start with. Everybody benefited from it, but over a period of time, it's lost its relevance. We've not had a Champions Trophy from 2017 in 7 years. Who's talking about it? It's not that you missed out on taking nothing away from what it is given. 2017, if you looked at the viewership, or even in terms of public participation in England, barring the India matches and the India-Pakistan match, even for the England games, there were no packed stadiums. So yes, commercially viable, you're looking at commerce, even commercially, how viable is it at this point of time? Or is it only a commercial property? Because there's so much of cricket happening, Champions Trophy in between all of that, I think we can do without it.
You can do without it. I mean, you're always black and white with your answers, aren't you, Manuja? Let's get that news story. Last year, like I mentioned, during the ODI World Cup, there was a lot of discussion around the Champions Trophy. Do we have that news story? That was published in The Guardian. और उसमें ये बात हो रही थी. And Srini, I want your thoughts on this. We'll get to some questions, some really interesting questions coming up. We'll get to them in just a minute. Lekin last year, there was a story during the ODI World Cup when when England was performing really poorly, and there was a danger कि वो top 8 में finish होंगे या नहीं होंगे, will they qualify for the Champions Trophy? That's why the Champions Trophy was in such spotlight amongst the English media कि England खेलेगा या नहीं खेलेगा. Eventually they did qualify, but at the end of the day, there was this discussion in that Guardian newspaper. Do we have that story? If you can put it on. If not, the story was कि 25 का जो tournament है, it's possibly too late to change the format. Potentially the 29 tournament could be a T20 tournament. So, Srini, are we looking at, in terms of the relevance of the tournament, is T20 the format that will provide it more relevance? Commercialization, yes, there is no doubt about it. We've discussed that. Bottom line.
The fight is not about the format. Format, you
Okay.
can change it tomorrow. The fight is about the window.
Okay, the window, yeah. Okay,
Fight
go ahead.
is
Yeah.
not about the format. The fight is about the window. What is the global ruckus in cricket right now? Yesterday we had a brilliant show. We should tell our viewers, those who couldn't catch it, should actually kind of go back and see the show that we did yesterday. We had two very, very good journalists, Jared Kimber, George Dobell. We discussed about the idea of how player availability going forward is cricket's biggest battle, right?
Yeah.
That is from a player perspective. From an administrator's perspective, what is the biggest battle is making space for these players to play, which is the window itself, right?
Yeah.
So, inserting the Champions Trophy in that February March window was ICC's way of capturing a window that was vacant. If ICC wouldn't have captured that window, what the BCCI would have done is said that, listen, we want to start the IPL now, end of February or even early March, okay, which is what the BCCI has been thinking for the longest time. They want to start the tournament in March, and we can have another show in terms of what BCCI is thinking. The point is that that window had to be captured, and that's where ICC, and not now, ICC when Mr. Manu Sahni was the CEO of the ICC. I'm talking about 2020, just before the pandemic had kind of hit. If you remember, Saurav Ganguly, newly after he had taken over as the president of BCCI, and he would attend the ICC meetings on behalf of the BCCI. He was the board representative. He would come back and talk about how we are hosting we were talked about a 6-team white ball tournament. We talked about a 4-team white ball tournament.
4-team
I don't know,
T20
people,
tournament.
people may have forgotten. Okay, where were these conversations coming from? These conversations were coming from the standpoint that ICC, what they wanted to do was they wanted to grab a window where they could fit in 6 teams. Kya karna hai, what to do about the tournament, whether we do a T20 tournament, whether we do an 8-team tournament, a 50-over tournament, or a 4-team tournament is all secondary. Point is capture the window first. So the whole battle, global battle of cricket is between 4 parties. Please understand that.
Yeah.
4 parties. 1 is the BCCI, 2 is the ICC, 3 is the franchisees, 4th is the FICA.
Players
Okay.
Association.
Yes, FICA, which is now the World Cricketers Association. So World Cricketers Association and the franchisees are battling for players. Franchisees say we want the players to be in our control. World Cricket Association, Players Association says no, we are the ones who control the players, although they don't do anything. And similarly, between BCCI and ICC, it's about capturing the window. I think one of the days we should have a detailed show on this. So this capturing the window was on top of ICC mind is when Manu Sahni proposed, and countries like Pakistan, any Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, South Africa, West Indies, barring England and Australia, every country lapped up to the idea. Why? Because an ICC tournament simply means hosting fees, participation fees. And that's
Okay,
money.
that's fine. You've spoken about capturing a particular window, giving a particular window to an ICC event. Let's not forget कि पाकिस्तान का यहाँ पे शायद double loss हो सकता है, because as we mentioned, they have shifted around the PSL to bring in the Champions Trophy. Aman, could you please Aman का question यहाँ पे है. We'll take a few comments here. Could you please tell us when we can get full clarification by ICC regarding this issue? And by this week, as we mentioned, November 22 is when the tentative schedule is expected. We are expecting a decision based on this series. This is we are expecting a decision on this tournament imminently, and November 22 is the date where we'll probably get the tentative schedule. whether it's hybrid or whatever the result is. Champions Trophy. This is the news story that I was talking about from the Guardian last year. Sources have suggested broadcasters want the Champions Trophy to be a T20 format. It could not be straightforward. Teams long since are out of the running for the World Cup semi-finals, including England, as we had mentioned. That is why the English media was so interested in the Champions Trophy. यहाँ पर एक comment आया था, I think निमेश का comment था. Yeah.
I'd like to ask Ali, which broadcasters?
Only one broadcaster, right? It's pretty obvious. There was only one broadcaster. He was talking about incumbent Disney Star. Last year के जो ODI World Cup के broadcaster.
What is the date? What is the date today? 12th, right?
Yeah.
Tomorrow you will get a press release from Jio.
Yeah.
Tomorrow is the press release that is coming on the JV app. So which broadcasters are you talking about? Jio has to take a call, right? It will not be Disney's property.
Okay. Anyway, so Nimish here is saying, but at the end of the day, when I say, at the end of the day, the broadcaster, look, even if it's JioStar, some part of the decision making is there. They want. We will see that tomorrow when that press release comes. That they are joining operations, and when you're joining operations, you're also footing that $3 billion bill that you've cut for that $3 billion check that you have cut for the ICC. So they would want buck for their tournament. Look, Nimish is asking here, Pat Cummins missing the decider, going to concert. Personal life hai yaar, jaane do. But I get your point. Your point is the ODI cricket is somewhere losing interest amongst the fans, amongst the broadcasters, amongst the sponsors, amongst everyone. Pat Cummins can enjoy his personal life, just like the Indian cricketers can fly to London and take holidays for instead of playing the Leap Trophy, etc., etc. So Australian cricketers can also do that. I had a very long series. Gaurav is laughing. Gaurav, your comments on this?
Gaurav, अगर ये BCCI में होता, Rohit Sharma takes leave from Indian cricket and I was discussing it yesterday, and goes to a Diljit Dosanjh concert. Imagine our people. Hey, क्या चालू है?
No, but he did take a holiday and miss the Duleep Trophy, didn't he? I mean, he's
कुछ भी कर रहा है क्या लोग?
The point is
concert देखेगा. आदमी cricket छोड़ के concert देखेगा.
The point is ODI is losing their relevance. Gaurav.
No, but having said that,
यार यहाँ पर तो डेड रबर भी थोड़ा रेलेवेंस लूज कर गया था, बिकॉज जसप्रीत बुमराह निकल गए और ये मुझे बहुत रिलायबल सोर्सेस बताते हैं कि अजीत अखरकर भड़क गए कि यार मुझे कौन बताएगा कि वो चले गए अहमदाबाद और पटाखे चला रहे हैं वाइफ के साथ में दिवाली के दिन है। ये डेड रबर तो नहीं था ना इतना, ये तो एक थर्ड टेस्ट मैच ऑफ सीरीज था जो शायद अगर आप जीत जाते और बुमराह एक मैजिकल स्पेल डालते तो वो डाल सकते हैं, शायद फिर आपको 3 टेस्ट मैच जीतने होते ऑस्ट्रेलिया में और शायद 100 में से जो अभी आपके एक चांस है वो शायद 90% सॉरी 10% चांस वो हो जाता। 3 टेस्ट मैच जीता एनी डे, शायद 4 से थोड़ा इजी होता है। तो थिंग्स आर अ बिट वेरी, आई डोंट नो हाउ टू जज पीपल ऑन दिस, बिकॉज अब ये पैट कमिंस तो शो देखने चले गए, वहां तो कोई रेलेवेंस ही नहीं। ऑस्ट्रेलिया पाकिस्तान सीरीज की मेरे ख्याल से तीसरा मैच तो सभी ने मिस किया, शायद उनकी लिटरली थर्ड ग्रेड टीम ने खेला। तो और वो जेसन लेफ्टी पॉइंटेड दैट आउट आल्सो, दैट हमको बहुत ही हल्के में लिया गया।
He took a break. It was an official break, and he took a break and he went not and he
not just Pat Cummins. No, not just Pat Cummins. It was, again, let's come back to it. It was not just Pat Cummins. It was their first choice 11, possibly their even second choice 11. Most of them were given time off to spend with their families, etc., etc. And let's be honest. Let's be very honest. They have India. The test match starts next week. So they were prioritizing that. They were prioritizing the mental health, physical health of their players who are playing in that test series against India. Pakistan might not like it कि आपने पाकिस्तान वाला ODI की इतनी कोई औकात नहीं रखी कि आपने अपनी third string side खिला दी. But at the end of it, it's the ODI format. क्योंकि Australian media में इतना सारा discussion हुआ है where you're talking about ODI की relevance खत्म हो रही है, and which is the conversation point here as well with the Champions Trophy. Gaurav and then Manuja, do you see the relevance of this ODI format? Last year also during the ODI World Cup, it was felt a lot. What is going wrong with the ODI format? Is it completely out of relevance in today's world cricket scenario? Gaurav and then Manuja.
I don't think so, yaar. I would disagree with that because if you see the ODI World Cup last year, धीरे धीरे इंटरेस्ट आया। आई अग्री द फर्स्ट मैच इन अहमदाबाद बहुत ही स्टेडियम बहुत खाली खाली सा लग रहा था, इट वाज वेरी एम्बैरेसिंग, बट स्लोली द सेम अहमदाबाद व्हेन आई वेंट टू कवर द ऑस्ट्रेलिया इंग्लैंड मैच, द स्टेडियम वाज आई थिंक देयर वर अराउंड 55-60,000 पीपल फॉर द ऑस्ट्रेलिया इंग्लैंड गेम एंड फाइनल ऑफ कोर्स वाज पैक्ड, सो धीरे धीरे करके अगर इतना इरेलेवेंट हो गया होता तो क्राउड्स नहीं आते। एंड मोस्ट ऑफ द मैचेस इन मुंबई, ऑल 5 मैचेस वर सोल्ड आउट, देयर वाज not a space in the, and there was a jostling for continuous request to me for passes, this, that, and I think for me that is the yardstick कि मुझे कितनी रिक्वेस्ट आ रही है कि passes अरेंज करा दे जरा. So I think that this format will also have its relevance, and it will have its context and interest, and I think that World Cup proved it to us. I remember my colleague Nitin Nayak writing a piece about it the day after the final, based on what Pat Cummins said after winning the World Cup, that this is the pinnacle for me. He said this is the pinnacle because the WDC also comes. This comes once in 4 years. After all, the other tournaments are still T20 World Cup दो साल में हो रहा है, World Test Championship दो साल में हो रही है, Champions Trophy का कोई अता पता नहीं है. ठीक है, तो मतलब this is one tournament which is consistently, it has a legacy, as since 75 it's being held, and it has a certain pride associated with it. India winning it for the first time in 83, Pakistan winning it in 92 for the first
I
time,
agree.
Sri Lanka
Yeah,
winning it in 96. So there are a lot of
yeah.
histories associated with ODI cricket, what I'm trying to say.
I agree, because
So
अगर आप T20 World Cup win भी देखो इंडिया की, that has come as a respite, to be honest. Really, that ODI World Cup win. I have the story from Ahmedabad the day before the final. I think not the day before the final. I think it was a couple of days before the final in Ahmedabad. And Rohit Sharma, Shreyas Iyer, and I think a couple other players had gone for a dinner at a restaurant. And when they were leaving the restaurant, everybody just stood up and just clapped for them. It just showed the value of being in that
absolutely.
ODI World Cup final. That's the pinnacle. That's still considered to be, yes, you have the World Test Championship, yes, you have the T20 World Cup, but the ODI World Cup is still the final. Winning the ODI World Cup is still considered to be the pinnacle of the sport at this point in time. And let's be very honest that winning the T20 World Cup was kind of a respite. आप दोनों चीजों को कंपेयर नहीं कर सकते हो कि T20 में आपने वर्ल्ड कप जीता है या ODI वर्ल्ड कप जीता है. Manoj, your thoughts on this? Before that, Kanan says, I like this idea, what he says. Champions Trophy should be remodeled as a retro tournament with retro jerseys and old ODI rules of field restrictions and ball usage, using that one ball. Amazing idea. I love this idea. We'll see reverse swing back, and we'll see how many batters who are accustomed to making big hundreds with two new balls from both ends. How many batters will be able to score big runs in that format? Manuja, your thoughts about the relevance of ODIs?
I think it's still relevant. I agree with Gaurav. Yes, T20 in many ways has spoiled people. Where you just finish work, go watch 3 hours of entertainment and come back. ODI has its own charm, and let's not forget, like you were saying, 83 changed the way we looked at sport in this country, and that came from that ODI World Cup win. Yes, at sometimes I think it gets a little taxing for people. There's so much of T20 cricket happening, so they find it a little taxing to watch. Sit through an ODI.
Yeah.
But that's the point. It has its charm. And if you're talking about ODIs, I mean, people have introduced hundreds also. So clearly that, it's only getting longer and not
100,
shorter. I mean, that's
yeah.
from T10 to, hundreds. There are various formats that are being played. I don't see a reason why, ODIs shouldn't be shunned at any point of time.
Okay, let's take a couple of comments here. BGT series, we are planning a full week of BGT build up. Don't worry about it. Yeah, a couple of comments which are probably relevant to our discussion here. Yeah, even Rohit said that for me, World Cup means ODI World Cup win. That's why ODI World Cup was a bit of nostalgia, and future T20 will take the front seat for kids and will surpass ODI World Cup. Okay, good to understand that. Sports fan, he says ODI format is relevant, but major excitement comes from when there is inclusion of minnow teams and they upset major teams. Otherwise, what's the difference between 8 and 10 team tournaments? Absolutely, we absolutely agree with you. See, the relevance kind of gets lost because last year we had a 10 team World Cup. Now we are having an 8 team tournament. Going ahead, the ODI World Cup probably is going back to the 14 team format from 27. Okay, Srini, here's an off-field comment for you. What about the suggestion given by Saurav Ganguly with that 3 or 4 team tournament? Have that multi-team tournament. Again, yes, every time he used to come back from the ICC discussion, he had some
Just
new
come with a suggestion.
Yeah, he would come with a suggestion, but is that a relevant suggestion? Do you see something like that happening?
What did he say? 6 team tournament.
4 team.
How? A lot of people ask about, why are triangulars tri-series not hosted these days?
Yeah.
Or why are 4 team tournaments not hosted these days? What if I tell you If you want the West Indies white ball team to travel anywhere, you
Yeah.
have to plan it a year in advance to bring all their 15 players together. They are
Yeah.
living in a they are absolute freelancers. The players are just not available.
Yeah.
There are leagues happening around the world, and it's a
Hmm.
packed calendar.
It's a packed calendar.
Where
Yeah.
is the space for you to host a team tournament or a 3-team tournament? Can you slot out 25 days where the Indian team is alone and not doing anything? And if they are not doing anything, that's a respite for them. We never consider the fact that even they have families to go back to. That's what happens when a Jasprit Bumrah has to find the slightest of windows available to take leave and spend some time with his wife and newborn before he again goes away to Australia. वो घर पे कब बिताएगा time? 31st को दिवाली था, first से मैच चालू था. On a Diwali night, you can't stay at home. So have some respect. There is no space available. There are no windows available. Why? Because we are living in a world where leagues are sprouting every nook and corner, which is the show we did yesterday.
Which is what we did yesterday. And if you guys are interested, you can look at that. We had a fabulous panel. We had Jared Kimber, we had George Dobell, we had Smith Patel from the US, cricket correspondent. So we talked about the changing landscape of world cricket और जितनी भी ये leagues आ रही हैं कैसे ये impact कर रहे हैं.
And
Yeah.
also, a tournament has to be worth the money that is on offer in the market. That money is now just not broadcast money, it's brand money, sponsorship money, tournament sponsors, players money, salaries. Are they all being kind of considered? This is not just broadcaster. Broadcaster will put money wherever a property sells. Tomorrow if he sees a 3-team tournament is selling more than, let's say, 100, he will not bother about the 100. He'll give. But the point is that some things are not selling because there are neither windows available nor there is player availability around. That is something that in general the outside world doesn't understand, because these are dynamics that get played behind the scenes. And these are things. I always say that yesterday I said it in the middle of the show, I'll repeat myself again. Me, Gaurav, Manuja, you, all of us are in the media. Okay, what are we doing? We are not, let's say journalists before us. There are many very senior journalists who we followed and joined this profession. They were looking at cricket as a property that had settled down after 83. What
Yeah.
happened was one day cricket had come here to stay, right? So
Yeah.
cricket revolved between test cricket and one day cricket. So since 83 onwards, the journalists that who covered this game very closely for the next 20 to 25 years, the media that covered the game very closely for the next 20 to 25 years, had a set pattern to follow and to document.
And now
Now,
the
when
game
we
has completely changed. Yeah.
when we talk about a Manuja and a Gaurav and me and you and what we are doing, we are documenting a transition. We really don't know where cricket is going to go from here. Maybe it will take another 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years
Which is
to settle down in any kind of a stable property, right? So
which is
maybe
what
the generation after us or the generation after that will probably be more in a position to tell you when cricket has settled down. But ours, I think, our generation, we are documenting a transition. We really don't know where the game is going to head.
Right. Which is what we discussed in yesterday's show when we talked about the international space. So just to sum it up, जो हम चैंपियंस ट्रॉफी के बारे में हमने आज बात किया है, because we have a couple of other topics to discuss very quickly with what's happening with the Indian team. The future of Champions Trophy, the immediate future जो हमने बात किया है, we have discussed about it. It's very, very simple. India is not going to Pakistan. The Indian team is not going to Pakistan. At the same time, पाकिस्तान को डिसाइड करना है कि वो हाइब्रिड मॉडल एक्सेप्ट करेंगे या फिर वो कहेंगे जो भी कहेंगे. We don't know what they're going to say. So at this point in time, that's what we're waiting for. The news that we have given you, which K. Srinivas Rao, Group Sports Editor, has given us today, is that the Champions Trophy schedule is expected by November 22, which means a decision on the fate of the tournament, whether it's hybrid or etc. That is also very, very imminent. And we discussed about the future of the Champions Trophy, ODIs format, T20 format. You can watch the show on Rewind. It will be available on YouTube. But let's move on. We have a couple of other news to discuss. One big news which might affect India's BGT chances, And let's bring in Gaurav and Manuja here because they are our resident Ranji Trophy experts. Mohammed Shami back playing for Bengal. He'll be playing. He'll be in action from tomorrow, isn't he? He's there. Look at that. Shami said to make injury return. The first time Mohammed Shami will be playing since the ODI World Cup last year, where he had a stellar performance. He's going to be back. He had a bit of an Achilles injury. Then he had an issue with the knee. उस पे भी हमने काफी discussion किया था. But now he's set to make his competitive return to cricket. He's going to turn out for Bengal, and who knows? Who knows? Rohit Sharma खेले ना खेले first test. Maybe Mohammed Shami gets to play the first test. Manuja and then Gaurav.
First test, I don't see that happen. Let him just come out onto the field tomorrow. I mean, there's so much of, can he not? I think even as late as last week, they said there were fresh injury concerns. Obviously, he's out to prove his fitness. Okay. NCA has cleared him for him to be playing Ranji Trophy tomorrow. Very exciting, but I think it's cutting it too fine to think he's going to be considered for the first test. But will he go to Australia after that? You never know.
Gaurav, your thoughts?
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised because what I had learned, and this was my story about the fresh injury concern, कि side strain हो गया उसे, and I was told that things aren't looking good with him, and then suddenly to learn, I think थोड़ा सा pressure है to bring him back, and that's sort of maybe they're rushing him and to just sort of try कि भाई तू एक बार डाल के देखो, and if you're good, then because things are not going right. I mean, you are actually going there as pretty much as underdogs. So I think maybe this will be a big boost if at all it works out. चलो first test नहीं, maybe first two tests नहीं. But last three tests also, if he's available, nothing like it for this series, this kind of a series.
Okay, I want to talk to you about this. You mentioned the side strain. We've been talking about the Champions Trophy news. This is also very big news क्योंकि हमने Achilles injury सुनी थी जो last year से थी. उसके बाद we heard that he's been there's been a setback. There's some issue with his knee. जब वो इतना बड़ा बवाल हुआ था during I think that was the Bangladesh series, right? Or was it? Yeah, the first test, just before the first test, New Zealand first test. Now you're talking about a side strain. ये कब हुआ है? Is this a potential new thing? And why do you feel that it's being made out that he's coming back too early?
ये मुझे भी समझ नहीं आ रहा because my source, in fact, today only he told me that in the NCA roster it's listed that Shami to report at 2:30 and go through his whatever rehab this thing, and then he's also in the evening he was supposed to obviously must have flown to Indore for the Ranji Trophy match. So I think मुझे लग रहा है थोड़ा सा rush job है and it's just a desperate attempt to see where he stands. Maybe Shami himself is sick and tired of the sick bay यार. मतलब कभी ये injury आ रही कभी चलो मैं खेल के देखता हूँ. Let me just see. Let me have a go. ठीक है. Remember that he also bowled at full tilt during the Bengaluru Test match. And then almost proving Rohit Sharma wrong and Arani Basu's story wrong that everybody thought कि शायद आ जाएंगे but वो नहीं हुआ. So we have to wait and see with him. I think how vulnerable his body has been post the injury. I think we have to wait and see. And side strain, definitely I was told that this is the new injury, and this is why he was actually supposed to return one Ranji match earlier, but he could not. But इतनी जल्दी side strain ठीक हो जाएगा ये मुझे idea नहीं था.
Okay.
In fact, he was bowling even during the Bengal match. He was bowling at the nets. He was at the NCA nets last week.
Okay, but Manuja, यहाँ पर एक और factor भी तो है because the Ranji Trophy halts, right? We have how many rounds remaining? One round remaining, two rounds remaining.
This is the last round.
Yeah, one round remaining.
Post Diwali we had two rounds, so one round has already finished. Tomorrow the last round before we resume the Ranji Trophy in February, right?
Yes.
थोड़ा सा pressure वो भी तो है because you don't have too much cricket remaining, right? If you have to prove your fitness, if you have to prove your bowling rhythm, that is a major factor. You have to play Ranji Trophy. You have to play the day game format. You have to play the red ball format, and only then he can come back to the Indian team. And that puts him in a weird window. कि ये वाला, क्योंकि like you said, he was expected to play the last round. He didn't play, and now he wants to play this round because there's no other round remaining after this.
Yeah, because the next match you play after that, even if it's Mushtaq Ali, happens only on 23rd.
Yeah.
Then again, how do you go prove your fitness in a Mushtaq Ali if you're going to Australia? So it's a no-brainer there. This, like you said, is his last chance to go. But given his history of injuries, this looks like a rush job.
Okay.
But I
Okay.
think, desperate times, desperate measures.
Well, the series has not started. I don't know how is it desperate yet. Yes, let's wait and watch क्या होता है. But also, best wishes to Mohammed Shami. He's coming back after a long time. We'll be seeing him on the cricket field. Now let's go to the final story. Do we have a graphic for that? Uh, as always, whenever the Indian team lands in Australia, and the Indian team has landed in Australia, they've had their first practice session behind closed doors. सब जगह से cover लगा के अच्छे से at the Waka, they've had their first practice session. Whenever the Indian team or whenever any big opposition team lands in Australia, the mental disintegration begins. And, it begins with the media first. Virat Kohli, writes the Australian media, looks set to be farewelled. अभी इंडिया से फेयरवेल मिला नहीं है, ऑस्ट्रेलिया ने पहले फेयरवेल कर दिया है. Amidst a recent form, he is anticipated to make his final appearance on Australian soil. Despite his struggles, many believe Kohli can regain his form, but young Yashasvi Jaiswal is poised to captivate audiences as India aims to retain the trophy. Let's start with Manuja and then go with Gaurav, and last comment from Srini. Manuja, what is this? They're trying this mental disintegration with Virat Kohli. Doesn't work with
I think
Virat.
almost 2 weeks ago, no, and anybody who's has something to say, and anybody who's willing to be quoted has been speaking, from Warner to everybody else. And I think one of the things that Gautam Gambhir said at the press conference yesterday, what does Ponting have to do with Indian cricket? He should focus on Australian cricket. Holds good for the media as well.
Right.
There's a bandwagon of Indian journalists going, let them focus on Indians. You please look after your players.
Okay. Proper Indian supporter, Indian cricket fan supporter speaking there. Manuja, as always, very black and white with her comments. Gaurav, your thoughts on this?
यार आई थिंक गंभीर की प्रेस कॉन्फ्रेंस बहुत इंटरेस्टिंग होने वाली है ऑस्ट्रेलिया में. और पहली बार मुझे लगता है ऑस्ट्रेलिया को ऑस्ट्रेलिया की भाषा में जवाब देने वाले कोच जा रहे हैं. आई मीन he was completely fiery yesterday. He was just completely firing it back on that Ponting question. He was totally brazen and in your face. But that is Gautam Gambhir for you. Having said that, ये विराट कोहली का I think ये trump up किया जा रहा है. I mean he has been the most hyped up cricketer in Australia, which is a bit surprising because Sachin Tendulkar has also scored a lot of runs there. But then Virat's performance has been absolutely amazing in Australia since his first tour. So this was expected, having said that, my fear is that ऐसा ना हो कि ये damn squib हो जाए, इतना build up हो रहा है उनका, and then that would only perhaps put more pressure on him, considering he's going through a slump. But then those wickets suit his batting, so that's a separate issue altogether. Coming to Yashasvi Jaiswal, definitely, I mean we all have huge expectations from him. Yeah, what a brilliant player, and I think good wickets, वो जैसे हमारे अखाड़े बनते हैं वो तो नहीं होने वाला है वहाँ पे कि बॉल नाचने लगेगी पहले दिन दोपहर से ही. So I think on good wickets he'll enjoy the kind of form that he's in. I'm sure he'll sort of go better, and this attack he will relish. I think he's the sort of player, the better the attack, the best it will bring out in him. So I can't wait to see how he plays on those wickets and against that attack.
In fact, we were talking. I was looking at the short video clips from the practice session, and I was thinking, कितना अच्छा लग रहा होगा हमारे batters को कि the ball is coming onto the bat with good bounce and carry. Yes, Dash Om Prakash Dash यही कह रहे हैं कि why are they giving attention to young Yashasvi Jaiswal? It's called pressure tactic, my friend. They're putting him under pressure. और कौन है आपके पास इनफॉर्म बैटर जिसने 1000 रन्स बनाए हैं इस WTC साइकिल में? There's nobody else. You just have Yashasvi Jaiswal, who's been making big runs, who's been making consistent runs. He's been carrying confidence into his batting everywhere and in every series. They're trying to put him under pressure. This is the same tactic they deployed against Virat Kohli when he was young, when he went there in 2011, which brings Srini into this equation. Srini, is this Virat Kohli's last trip to Australia?
Of course.
Yeah,
there is no doubt about it. If it's not, it better be.
It better. Okay, that's a big statement.
Yeah, I mean, come on. I mean, there's there are a lot of other players waiting. If this is, if the last series was Cheteshwar Pujara's last series to Australia, this better be the last series for a lot of people. Unless you are, of course, going there and winning the four tests and qualifying for WTC, then we'll talk.
Okay.
Other than that, I have, sorry.
The WTC qualification यार मेरे फोकस में तो अब है नहीं, because it's an
मैं बोल रहा हूँ ना, मैं इसीलिए बोल रहा हूँ आप 4-0 जीतो, आप 4-1
हम्म,
जो भी है जीतो, आप WTC के लिए क्वालिफाई हो जाओ, फिर हम बाद में फिर अलग से बात करेंगे। तब तक तो मुझे
okay.
कोई इंटरेस्ट नहीं है। राइट नाउ द वे आई एम लुकिंग एट द इंडियन टीम, pressure, no pressure. Boss, I expect our guys to just stand there, stand, stand there. You Gaurav just talked about the number of runs that Virat has scored in the past in Australia, and how Sachin Tendulkar and the greatest batsmen have probably. Australia is one destination where the greatest of men have had to go and to prove themselves to the world. That has been the
Yeah,
destination, right? I
yeah,
mean, the greatest of batters in the world have probably earned their this thing by batting and standing in Australia. So what I expect from this Indian team, forget scoring runs and winning matches. Just learn to stand there. The good old art of Test match cricket. To go there and stand at the crease for one full day. Whatever happened to the Rahul Dravid school of batting? What is it that India under Rahul Dravid's coaching has failed to understand? I can understand people had a problem when Ravi Shastri was the coach, and we talked about the school of batting, etc., etc. And then people looked at Rahul Dravid coming, taking over, and said, "Okay, here is where we go now." And I don't think we've learned anything from the past. So, to cut the long story short, I guess one of the things that I'm expecting these Indian batters to do is go and stand there, face those bowlers, stand there. Just don't play T20 batting and come back to the dressing room. So, look at the last test when they were chasing and they thought they could repeat what they did against Bangladesh.
yeah, yeah.
Unfortunately,
Stay at the
whether they
wicket.
could do it or not do it is not the question. The fact
Hmm.
that they thought, let's go ahead with this, is the problem that I have in mind.
Right. Introspect says Phil Gill has to take charge, and this is what we're talking about, his journey of becoming a great. अगर आप ऑस्ट्रेलिया में 500-600 रन बना देते हैं, no doubt your journey towards being a great will can potentially start, and this is something that we'll be looking forward to from our young guns, Yashasvi Jaiswal, Shubman Gill, and of course we're hoping for one last hurrah from the likes of Virat Kohli as well. Tomorrow we'll be back looking at the third T20. We haven't spoken about the India South Africa series, so tomorrow's show will be dedicated to that. From Thursday onwards, we'll be building up to the Border-Gavaskar Trophy. पूरे week का build up है. We are trying to plan it in a very unique way so that we can bring you an extra perspective as well. We're still trying. We can't promise yet, but we'll be building up to the Border-Gavaskar Trophy from Thursday onwards. Tomorrow it'll be India versus South Africa, and we'll have our panelists back on the show. But for today, thank you, Srinivas Rao, Gaurav Gupta, and Manuja Virappa. Thanks for joining in. Thanks for your views. And thanks to all our viewers for watching and for your comments. We'll see you tomorrow for the India South Africa 30-20.